HINDU Editorial Turning Tide. Sliding global demand is hurting manufacturing exports already. India's, ex- India's goods exports rebounded from a nearly 17% dip in October to a mild 0.6% uptick in November, while the value of exports recovered to $32 billion from $29.8 billion in October. It is still significantly below the $39 billion average between April and September. Imports growth moderated to 5.4%, with the value of shipments slipping to $55.9 billion, a level last seen in February 2022, which was followed by 7 months of import bills of around $60 billion. The merchandise trade deficit eased below $25 billion for the first time in 5 months. The easing of some commodities prices may help curb the import bill and deficit to some extent, but this could cut both ways as the value of some exports that boomed because of global price trends earlier will also decline. A part of the import bill dip was triggered by lower non-oil cargo, signaling slowing domestic demand, but non-oil exports performance is a greater worry. Their share in exports growth has been shrinking since June, with the contraction accelerating for many sectors from September to November. Engineering goods that drove much of India's record $422 billion goods export in 2021 to 22 contracted 11.3%, while textiles fell a steeper 25%. December's pending festive orders may still lift export numbers month on month, but the onset of 2023 would spell greater pressures for India's trade story, with key markets heading into a recession, having grown 11.1% in the first 8 months of 2022 to 23. Goods exports could still fall 2.3% over the full year. A CARE Ratings research paper cautioned on Tuesday. While the World Trade Organization expects global goods trade to grow just 1% in 2023, CARE reckons India's exports may rise a meager 1.5% in 2023 to 24. Services exports and remittance inflows may cushion India's current account deficit from the goods trade imbalance and restrict the economy's external vulnerabilities. But policymakers need to focus on ensuring a soft landing for factories in export intensive sectors that are also massive employers so that the global gloom does not hit domestic sentiment. In recent weeks, the government belatedly scrapped the export duty on steel and iron ore that was hurting engineering exports too, and brought them under a tax refund scheme with thus far excluded sectors like drugs and chemicals. Keeping an eye on market realities to respond deftly to emerging challenges is vital for Indian exporters to sustain through the coming turmoil and perhaps even expand their share in the global trade pie. Vietnam, Cambodia, Bangladesh, and China saw their share rise even when global trade growth itself slowed in the years before COVID 19. India too should aspire to emerge stronger from the brewing storm. Second editorial. Labored wages. Any delay in funds to be paid to states for Manrega's payment is unethical. A testy exchange in the Rajya Sabha between the Minister of State for Rural Development, Sadhvi Niranjan Jyoti, and the Trinamool Congress MP, Jawhar Sirkar, on the withholding of funds for the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme in West Bengal laid bare a key implementation issue: wage delays. A report by the non-profit organization LibTech India found that 2,744 crore rupees was still due to workers for work done since December 26, 2021. The delay in the payment, which is contrary to what is stated in Section 3 of the NREG Act, has resulted in a drop in the number of households working under the scheme in the state, from 77 lakh during the pandemic years to 16 lakh in the current financial year. The current number falls short of the 49.25 lakh households which availed the scheme in the last pre-COVID-19 year as well. The union government in its response suggested that funds have been blocked only in West Bengal for non-compliance with the directives of the central government, and this pertains to prior fund misuse. But the Trinamool Congress government's response is legitimate. The state has answered queries related to the misuse and the blocking of funds to workers. The fact that misuse has reportedly covered only a fraction of the grants suggests that workers are being unduly punished. Wage delays have been a chronic problem with Manregas, which beyond being a form of insurance for the poorest rural household was a boon during the pandemic years, giving succor not only to such households but also to migrant workers from urban areas as alternative employment. Earlier this year, the delays in fund disbursal to the states were on account of procedural delays and an overhauling of the public financial management system. Finance Ministry. This should not be a problem if the union government sets aside adequate funds at the beginning of the financial year, while an emphasis on reducing misuse is necessary. In particular, ensuring that the scheme is put into use by actually undertaking public works, the misplaced reliance on technocratic approaches has stymied its implementation. The government has now made digital capture of Manrega's attendance mandatory at work sites, despite issues such as the lack of technical support, the necessity to own a smartphone, and workable internet connections at the sites not having been fully resolved. A scheme such as Manrega's needs to evolve while keeping its core idea of a demand driven work allocation intact. Treating it as a burden will only hurt genuine beneficiaries. Thank you.